Hello, Werner.
Hi.
So could you tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay, my name is Werner Kornexel. I am representing the World Bank here in the Mekong area on environment and natural resource management. And here already for a year, traveling a lot in the area.
So where are we now? Can you tell us where is the location?
So we are now in Phnom Penh. That's the capital of Cambodia. In the background you see the Mekong River and the rapid, you see also the rapid economic and real estate development in Phnom Penh. That has been still 10 years ago a very sleepy city, and now this has been changing as everywhere else in Asia, quickly developing.
So could you tell us what are the hot issues regarding water in Asia and in particular in Cambodia?
Well, in Asia, let's start. I feel more comfortable when you're looking at starting with Cambodia. Cambodia is essentially a water resource country. It is based on water resource management for thousands of years and have been relying on the water from the Mekong for rice production, for agricultural purposes, all of these years. Now, recently this has become under stress with increasing dam construction all along the Mekong River, but also lack of a clear vision of natural resource management. You have increasing droughts and floods, and with increasing climate change as well, having huge impacts on agriculture, on livelihood, and specifically in the rural poor.
So what actions the World Bank have undertook to tackle these issues?
Well, the World Bank is supporting mainly government programs here and has the role to push the envelope, right, in financing and the policies and the investments as much as possible to support the poor in a sustainable landscape. And here we have just recently approved our first environmental loan to the Cambodian government on forest landscape management, very, very important to support ecosystem services for this country. But also we are starting to have a dialogue on solid waste management, on plastic management, and very much in support of better solid waste management strategy in the country, but also when it comes to plastic, marine litter and other things that are essentially impacting Cambodia very specifically. But that is an Asian problem. It's a global problem that we are tackling here as well nationally. But then also we have a number of support programs on water resource management and water supply across the country. This is a big issue, and it's not an issue that Cambodia can tackle alone. It depends on a cooperation with Laos, with Thailand, with China, etc., because the Mekong River is going through all of these countries, and that is a big challenge for these little countries like Cambodia to manage a dialogue and receive and define the critical investments to have a more resilient pathway forward.
So the issues concern, of course, the fisheries, the rice fields. So how responsive is the government and local people regarding these issues?
Yeah. Well, if you see that this fish is the main protein intake for Cambodians, right? It's fish and water resource management, absolutely important, not only for rice production but also for fisheries. Now, I find that the Cambodian government is very responsive actually to a very integrated natural resource management strategy, and I think this is a very positive message that they have. And we have a very intensive dialogue on these issues, and they would like to learn what other countries are doing, where they can do better. They understand that natural resources, water resource management is a critical aspect for this government. If they don't do anything on climate change and other things and droughts and a more resilient environment, they will suffer 10% reduction on GDP growth, and they do understand that, and very much have tried to explore critical investments and policy changes moving forward. So I think this is, for me, was a huge surprise when I came here, how much and how high the commitment is really in a shifting, really a huge policy shift towards sustainability in this country.
So politicians, that's very important to, of course, that they get involved and interested in the issue. But what about local people? Because they are the actors, the main actors on the field. So how responsive are they?
Well, environmental conscious, if you want to say so, is first of all the rural population is very much dependent on natural resources. 80% of the rural poor depend on forest and water resources very clearly, and so they're the first one they're affected by land speculation or any natural resource management changes. They're gonna suffer the most, right? So it's much more there on the impacted side rather than on the driving side. The driving side are much more larger corporations or climate change as such, no? And I think this needs to be recognized first of all. But certainly there is much to do as well on their side in terms of environmental conscious and changing mind shift, right, when it comes to plastic pollution and other things, where certainly you go through the Asian landscape, and particularly in Cambodia, you see the impact of plastic everywhere in the waterways and in the landscape. So it is quite dramatic, and certainly there are things that need to change urgently.
So we talk about local people, but NGO are quite many of them here. How do you collaborate with them, and how does it work with local people, you and this network? Does it work, and with the government too?
Well, it's interesting because we're working with the government, right? So natural resource management and environmental pollution has mostly, these services have been mostly provided by NGOs in the past, right? And government has very much outsourced those services to NGOs. And now there's the moment, and it's a very interesting moment, where government wants to take control now on these things, and there needs to be a shift from the leadership from the NGOs towards the government now, and that will happen over the next 5-10 years very significantly.
So now, what is your vision of water, the future of water? How are you optimistic?
If I'm optimistic, yeah, I think I'm very optimistic once I see what can be done, because this is a region, the Mekong area is a region that is, here they're growing 7% per year. You have a forest landscape and a forest water landscape that is full of people, full of economic development, and yet there is a coexistence between natural resource management and water management and economic development in a certain way. Certainly forests get more impacted, and forest and water resource management is affected by, as I said, climate change and infrastructure development. Nevertheless, I believe the policy commitment of these governments, all of them that we have been talking to, is a beacon of hope, I believe, because they really do understand now what is at stake, how we could turn this around, increasingly connected between each other. So I think there is certainly it's not going to be an easy way, right? We have sea level rise, we have salinization, we have coastal erosion, we have a number of these things to tackle, which are much beyond the capacity of these governments, and the stakeholders here. But I believe we are on a positive way of understanding what are the issues, and we understand as well that this is not, the investments are not out of this world. We can manage that, right? And I think that we are at that stage where I believe we can make a change.
So last question, what about children, kids here, education? Because they will be affected, they will be the first victim, if you're pessimistic, of the climate change and of course the impact on water. What's happening here in Asia, in particular in Cambodia? Are they involved?
Well, this is a country where most of the people are below 20, right? This is I think one of the youngest countries with a full dynamic of young generation coming, And so defining what this country is and what will become. Education has been always a very, very poor issue here, but now just recently they're introducing environmental education specifically on solid waste management as a core curriculum in the education. So I think there's changes coming. Certainly, it is a huge challenge. But if you look around, it is a major issue. Everybody talks about, right? Everybody talks about water, about droughts and floods and environmental management. It is a common issue that everybody is making as a priority, I believe, and I think that is also a big area of hope for us to introduce the policy changes and have the support from the broader population here.
Werner, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking your time and interviewing me here in this lovely place. Thanks a lot.